Hi, I'm Catherine Llewellyn, the host of the podcast. You can find out all about Truth and Transcendence on truthandtranscendence.com. And you can find out all about me on beingspace.world, where you will find my online coaching offering as well as my UK-based workshops. The Freedom of Spirit workshop for liberation and empowerment, the Pellower Radical Shift in Consciousness workshop for spiritual expansion, and transformational coaching for exploring the mind-body-spirit connection on the expansive path. You can also support the podcast by actually making a donation. I hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to Truth and Transcendence. You can find all our other episodes on truthandtranscendence.com. A really good thing happened the other day. I received an email from somebody saying that they had changed their mind and they were not going to go ahead with a coaching session with me. So why was that a good thing? I immediately felt relief. I felt space. I felt an uplift in my spirit. Why? It was not because I didn't want to work with that person. It was because I had a feeling they weren't going to do it because they'd taken a bit of a while coming back to me. But actually, it was because I could now let go of that part of my energy that was attached to working with that person. Because when I have a discovery call with somebody, I connect with them and I become interested in them. And if we might be working together, particularly if they have said that they would like to work with me, there's something that goes on within me. There's a process that has begun within me. It's the beginning of a building of a working relationship that occurs. That takes some energy. Obviously, I'm interested in that. A lot of it happens on the subconscious level. And then in most cases, that then carries on and we begin working together and we build together that working relationship. And that's a wonderful thing. But if we are then not going to work together, then for me, as the person who is kind of investing some energy into that, perhaps on the subconscious level mostly, being released from that when they say no is actually very freeing. It creates space for me. And if anyone is listening or watching who's been involved in sales, I think you'll probably resonate with this, that the no is very often as valuable as the yes, because it frees you up. It frees up the energy. You can put your energy into another direction. The other side of it, though, is that it also frees up the energy for the person who has said no. This particular person, we haven't spoken since this particular email came through, although I've, of course, responded. I'm confident that for that person, saying no will also release them and release their energy. Because for them, again, possibly on a subconscious level, a certain amount of work would have been going on around preparing for the interaction they might have with me if we start working together, reflecting on what that might be about, how that might go, what they might want to get out of it, what they might want to bring to it, how they might organize that they were going to come to me, someone fairly locally to me, how they're going to, how they're going to get the directions, how they're going to find their way, all of those details that go into the lead up to actually getting together with somebody for a session. Now, that's all absolutely fine, but when you know it's not going to happen, the best thing really is to say it's not going to happen, and then you free up yourself and you free up the other person as well. And I reflected on that day, and I thought, isn't that interesting, that energetic shift that can occur when we say no? And we don't have to do it in a harsh way. We don't have to be rude. We don't have to be nasty. We don't have to justify it. We don't have to come up with reasons. We can just say, actually, no. And it makes space for moving forwards. I've found this very useful in my own life. I now practice, if I need to say no on something, to try to say no as soon as I can, because that will release me and it will release the other person, even if the other person doesn't want me to say no. And equally, I much prefer it if someone's going to say no to me, that they say no as soon as they know it's a no, if they possibly can. Now, I also appreciate sometimes it's very difficult to do that. And one of the reasons it's difficult to do that is because we think a no is unfriendly. We think it's an ending. It is an ending of something, but it's not the ending of everything. It might be the beginning of everything. It might be the beginning of something else that's just wonderful. How many stories have you heard of somebody asks somebody out on a date and the other person says, no, I don't feel that way about you. And then what ensues is a fantastic friendship. Happens all the time. But if that person who was asked out on the date, because they found that person intriguing, they liked them, but they knew they weren't attracted to them, and they probably weren't going to become attracted to them, if they'd just gone along with it, that would have been a lie. That would have been a deception, a self-deception. And that could have really undermined what could have turned into a fantastic friendship, which who knows in the future what that might have blossomed into. So the no makes space for the yes. Just like the ending makes space for the new beginning, the death makes space for the rebirth. When I was quite young, I sadly lost my mother. She passed away when I was a child. And I had 3 brothers and sisters who were all younger than I was. And at the time, it was deemed appropriate and necessary for us not to go to the funeral. So some listeners now might think, what were they thinking? Not allowing the children to go to the funeral. Now, at the time, the prevailing wisdom was you should protect your children from really intense experiences, particularly grief. You should not expose them to those things because it will harm them. It'll traumatize them. Now, what actually happened, and I didn't realize this at the time, I didn't realize this until I reached adulthood, was that me not being able to go to that funeral was actually not helpful for me. It was bad for me. I was fortunate enough to have a practitioner supervisor at the time, a wonderful man, Dennis Postal. And if you have not listened to the episode with Dennis on the podcast, do go and check it out. Wonderful. It's audio only, it's a particular podcast. But anyway, I digress. So Dennis and I were having a session. I was talking about this because I was talking about the early loss of my mother and how that might have affected me. And we came to realize in the session that actually the lack of the funeral experience was a problem. And so we actually enacted a funeral experience for me in the session, where I was able to say goodbye and to celebrate what she'd given me and thank her for everything she'd left me as a legacy. And it was one of the most profoundly healing experiences of my life. So powerful, so beautiful. I can still feel now the sacredness of the experience, the beauty of the experience. And it was profoundly healing and profoundly releasing because I was able to much more fully experience that ending in a way that had been denied me at the time. Now, of course, one could have done one's own funeral as a child in the garden. I had no idea about that sort of thing at the time. I had no idea. I was just dealing with the experience as best I could, trying to support the family and my father, who had been widowed. So, I was not in a place to consider these things in any kind of mature fashion at the time, understandably. Now, that's a little bit of a sad story, and I think it illustrates the power of allowing the ending to be felt, allowing the letting go to be felt, allowing the death to be felt. And every time we do that in relationship to something as significant as an actual physical human death, or the death of a pet, or any of these endings that we allow ourselves to fully experience, will help us in everyday life to say no when we need to say no, because a no is a little death. And when we actually say no We are letting something go. We are releasing ourselves. We're releasing the other person or the other people. There may be some initial arguing, fighting, unhappiness, but it makes space for the new. So over the coming week, maybe you have something that's live for you at the moment that is an ending or a death of sorts, or maybe you have something live at the moment that needs a no to be said, or where a no has been said, but where that hasn't fully been accepted or metabolized at this point. So if you're having any of those things going on, blessings upon you with that, compassion. And I wish you compassion for yourself and the others who are involved with that. And maybe really embrace that situation as an opportunity to feed that part of you that can actually honor, celebrate, and respect the sacredness of the deaths, the endings, and the no's. So that's all for Truth and Transcendence for today. That's the ending of Truth and Transcendence for today. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And thank you for all of your support of the show. So very much appreciated. Have a wonderful week. I'll see you next time. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. It really helps if you give a thumbs up, a 5-star rating, a review, and share with your friends. If you're looking for transformational coaching or an intensive transformational weekend workshop experience, I can help with that. You can actually help the show by making a donation. Until next time, take care.